Alright family, welcome back to the channel. I'm your boy Cut Nice 50 and this is 101 with Cut Nice 50. Today man, we got another amazing video review. But if you're new to the channel, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow. Happy holidays and welcome to 2025. Hey, like I said before, it's been a challenging year, but this year we're going to do our best to be the best version of ourselves. With that being said, man, hey, we appreciate y'all for following us on the journey in 2024. This year we're going to make waves. We're going to keep improving all the way around. It's about balance. So I wish y'all all the blessings this year. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Now, I did a part one, the intro video on Billy Carson losing the debate to my guy Wesley Huff. Oh man, it was an amazing video. And like I said before, I'm a fan of Billy Carson, but if y'all didn't know anything about Billy, ancient Egyptian, you name it, he do all kind of documentaries. Forbidden Knowledge is a great channel for him. A lot of amazing information. I think he's very smart, intellectual, you name it. This guy is amazing in his perception on just life in general. He knows a lot of things on the Bible. I just think his perception is a little different than most people because of the traumatic or life-changing events that he had in himself. With that being said, Wes Huff is amazing. He's a biblical scholar, PhD, all these degrees, historian, you name it. He has a lot of information when it comes to biblical text, teachings, and just understanding. Scribes, I think he reads those, and he actually makes his own documents of the biblical text, translating and stuff like that. But I mean, I thought it was amazing debate. We're gonna go into it. I'm not gonna watch the full unedited version of it. We're gonna go to my guy what do you mean channel. He did a amazing video review, so full link will always be in the description section below. He did an amazing video, and it's titled Billy Carson Loses Career Ending Debate to Christian Scholar. I don't think it's career ending, because a lot of people, you already see the Blue Beam Project. If you don't know anything about that, I'll post a couple of these little clips right here. You can read it for yourself. That's my own perception of what's going on when we see these things in New York and all these orbs. I heard about this over 15-20 years ago being talked about. Y'all know 25 years plus in law enforcement, DOD, DOS, you name it. I've been around the block a little while. So but I am a Bible believer, so that's a little different when it comes to Billy. He do believe in God or the Creator. He just don't believe in Jesus, all the details in it. If you know anything about the story, you know why, you understand the reasons for it. I just think he's touching base on information that it wasn't made for humans. That's in my own personal perception. When you go with chakras, you go with everything else. Him and his wife, I met his wife first. Very smart, intellectual. They on the same things, energy wavelengths, and I think they're correct in most of their teachings and understanding of it. I just think when you go to the Bible, the sermon, these things is not meant for us to understand or just touch and base to it. It could help you in a whole lot of other ways, but we don't even know the realm of stuff that we're getting into. So it could be damaging. You could be messing with spirits or demonic influences. You just don't know. So I just like to lean on God, not putting things up to my own interpretation like we often lead to do. Most people, they want to be rich, they want to live forever, they want to do all these things, but that's just ain't in the cards what God designed us to be or what he designed us to do. But that's my own personal belief. But let's go ahead and jump in this video right here. Hey, we appreciate y'all. Let's go. This is gonna be hot, so comment, share your thoughts below.
He calls himself, guess what, guys? I'm one of the foremost world leader in the knowledge on ancient texts and tablets, scriptures, papyruses, and cylinders. But Billy Carson recently faced a challenge like never before. A debate with Wes Huff, a Christian scholar and historian. And afterwards, Billy reportedly showed up to the producer's house at 2:30 a.m. demanding that the footage not be released. And if you haven't heard about this debate yet, there is a reason for that.
In the wake of the interview, Billy Carson has asked that the recording not be released. In my personal opinion, the conversation did not go well for Billy.
But fortunately, I got my hands on a copy, and after watching it, I can see why Billy tried to keep this off the internet. For the very first, and likely the last time, Billy had a debate where his claims about Christianity were put to the test. So let's break down why this debate was so damaging to Billy's credibility and his claims about Christianity. So the debate started off with Billy's argument that Jesus was never crucified, which, of course, if true, that means that Christianity is false. And here's the evidence that he gave in support of his claim.
In my videos, and if you listen to the podcast, the statement is according to the Sinai Bible.
Yeah, like they gotta go into a widgets commercial. Go ahead and go past. But Billy, they say he got out the hospital. He wasn't feeling good, and you can tell he was a little off. But he's quoted these things over and over for many videos. So I don't think that comes into play when it comes to this one right here. He just lost the debate. My honest opinion. That's just it.
Jesus wasn't crucified in that Bible. That Bible predates the King James Version of the Bible, and the text there actually is about 12 to 14,000 differences between the Sinai Bible and the King James Version of the Bible, which came much later. And then also one of the things that were interesting is that they discovered the book of Jesus' wife, which is at the Harvard Seminary, which according to some scholars, that's a little controversial, but they claim that this is an accurate record that Jesus may have even been married, which then, adds more, if that's true, it adds more to the hypothesis that maybe he wasn't crucified.
So basically he's saying that this alleged cyanide Bible doesn't claim that Jesus was crucified and that it predates the King James Version of the Bible. And by the way, on a little side note, there's no such thing as a King James manuscript. Like the other translations, the King James Version is just based on the biblical manuscripts that were found. And in addition to the evidence that Billy provided against the crucifixion of Jesus, Billy also says that we discovered the book of Jesus' wife, which he claims shows that Jesus might have been married. Now, I addressed these claims in another video I did on Billy a few months ago, but listen to how Wes responded.
When you say the Sinai Bible, what are you referring to specifically?
It's the biblical text that was written that made it into you can actually look it up on Amazon. It's a Bible called, I have a version at home. It's called the Sinai Bible, right, from Mount Sinai. I'm assuming that's the mountain that they're referencing there. But they put together their own version of the biblical text prior to the King James Version being put out.
Sure. So when you refer to the Sinai Bible, would you be referring to Codex Sinaiticus? Like the codex that comes... Okay.
So the reason why Wes is asking of this is because there's no such thing as the Sinai Bible, apart from a title that someone on Amazon gave it for a copy of it that they were selling. But that book only contains the Codex Sinaiticus, which is really bad news for Billy, because as Wes makes very clear...
So I work with manuscripts in my linguistic work. I'm an expert on early Christian scribal culture, and particularly in Greek and Coptic manuscripts. I actually have a facsimile. So I have a photocopy that was done by the British Library of Codex Sinaiticus that I work with in my office. So I have it here. And the Codex Sinaiticus in particular is just a Greek, it's a 4th century Greek manuscript. Mm-hmm. It comes from approximately between 325 and 350 AD. And its text of the Gospels reads almost identical to the modern Greek text that we develop translations from.
Yikes. So Wes actually has the manuscript that Billy's referring to in his office, and he studies this for a living. But even more devastating...
When you say that it denies the crucifixion or that the crucifixion isn't there, I mean, I can go on right now, Codex Sinaiticus, and I can look up the end of, say, Matthew 27, mm-hmm. where it has Jesus being crucified. And that's in Codex Sinaiticus, or the John 19, or any of the other ones. So,
and like I said before, Wes is cooking them right now, and he has the original documents or whatever case. Well, on Amazon, you can make whatever you want to. If it said Sinai Bible, maybe he was studying or researching the wrong text, wrong information. So I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. Even though he's smart, he's intellectual, I just think Billy was influenced by whatever beings, whatever things he came into it just to persuade him from actually believing and studying Christianity or Jesus. If Billy, I said it before in my intro video, if Billy and Wes actually teamed up, these two gentlemen right here can change the way you look at the Bible, understand it, and everything else. Like I said, Billy is on the ancient Egypt side and the glyphs, all the supernatural things like that. That's what he generally studies. Wes is more on the scribal, like you said before. You heard all the words this guy used. Very smart, linguistics and actually the scrolls and writing the text and using it and translating it today. That's just amazing. Just the gift this young guy has. But I still think that, I mean, I don't think Billy's all the way wrong. I just think he's so smart that he's finding things that's above regular, I guess, human thinking or comprehension. And he was encountered by whatever being it was, demonic, evil influence, principalities, you name it, the Bible talks about all these things in there. I just think he was persuaded in that other direction because of the influence he has now. Just imagine that. All the influence he has now, if he actually focused that energy on learning the truth and helping others go to Christ, it'll be game over for any demonic influences the world. But we already know who's the prince of this world right now. It would be game over, life changing for millions of people. And a lot of people would be wide awake to what's right in front of you, the spiritual battles, the great division that we have each and day in, day out. It's so much stuff that's going on. As a nutritionist, the battles about food. So we're in war with all kind of principalities and demonic influences all around us. You don't think, I mean, I just see it day in and day out. And it's sad sometimes it get overwhelming at times, but that's why you lean not onto your own faith. You don't kind of walk through life by your own sight. You know what I mean? That's why the Bible is there. The time, it's endless. But let's go ahead and jump into it. Share your thoughts and let me know what you think.
Are you able to pull up a website with the viewers or listeners or whatever?
I'm looking for it right now to make sure I have the right the version that I'm looking for.
All right. Now, if it isn't clear by now, this is devastating for Billy's credibility. Billy has ran with this claim for years until Wes decides to ask Billy to pull it up online so that way they can verify it together. And then Billy says that he wants to make sure he has the right version. But I'm not even sure what he means by right version because there's only one version, the one that Billy has referred to countless times over the last few years. And by the way, you don't have to take Wes's word for it. You can go to codexsinaiticus.org right now to view it yourself. And if you do, you'll find that it's virtually exact to the Bible that we have today, which is why you won't find a single scholar on the planet that agrees with Billy or has any idea what he's talking about here. So now that Billy is really in the hot seat, let's hear how he responds.
On the text where I was referencing, actually, I was misquoted. I misquoted there. It's the Gospel of Barnabas.
Okay, now, let's be charitable. So it is certainly possible that he could have misquoted the reference. The only problem is this isn't the first time that he said this, and he even said it at the beginning of the debate.
In my videos, and if you listen to the podcast, the statement is according to the Sinai Bible, Jesus wasn't crucified in that Bible.
And he's made this exact claim in almost every major podcast interview that he's been on. But if he really did misquote his reference, then we would expect for him to quote the Sinai Bible or the Book of Barnabas when he makes the argument against the crucifixion. So given this, I can't make sense of why he usually quotes them both as evidence that the crucifixion never happened.
I'll give you one big translation that's off is they say, well, Jesus was crucified.
Whoa.
Well, that doesn't exist in the Sinai Bible.
What happened?
It doesn't exist in the Book of Barnabas.
So if I was a fan of Billy, then I would be pretty...
I'm just saying, just as, like I said, I am a fan of Billy, but just when you're saying you done read all these books, he done studied all these things that's contradicting or he got the wrong information. This says that that's the case. He stated it because he done read them. I mean, he studied both of them, even though the Book of Barnabas is a known forgery and stuff like that in my perception and other scholars and other people's perception, he doesn't think so. So if you're already finding out information that's contradicting to the Bible, you see some of these other words, just like the scrolls that was left out the Bible and then they found them in the Dead Sea Scrolls, you name it. Now you're seeing like somebody's putting in place the accuracy and the belief of the Bible itself, but God already said it is in the Bible. His word will be misunderstood. You know, I mean, we have itching ears, everything else in the last days. But let's go ahead, share your thoughts on that and let me know what's your belief, why many people today don't believe in the Bible or trust it, or they lead to other sources for the information on biblical text knowledge and understanding.
Concerned that prior to this, he hasn't had a debate where someone can challenge him on his claims. And the first time that he was challenged, he basically admits that he was wrong. And this shows that he's been undeniably misleading people with this claim. But I'm sure that we could all overlook this mistake if the point about the Book of Barnabas still stands, right? Well, let's see what Wes has to say about this claim.
The Gospel of Barnabas is a really interesting document because it is a known forgery. It shows no actual indication of evidence of coming from or even having knowledge of first century Jewish understanding. And I think a bigger problem is that the Gospel of Barnabas actually paraphrases Dante's Inferno. Never mind the fact that we don't have any evidence of it prior to the 14th century, and none in any other language other than Middle Age Italian Italian and Spanish.
Okay, now what Wes said there was incredibly important, because the first piece of evidence that Billy gave in support of his claim that Jesus was never crucified was based on the claim that these books came before the King James Bible and didn't include the crucifixion. But the actual biblical texts that our Bibles are based on, they reference the crucifixion and go back to the 2nd century. So that means it's impossible for Billy to be correct about this, since he cites the Sinai Bible that goes back to the 4th century and does reference the crucifixion. And the Book of Barnabas is more than 1,000 years later than the biblical manuscripts that we have. And it wasn't even written in Greek, but instead Italian and Spanish. And by the way, it was a proven forgery. So now that Billy's back is up against the wall once again with facts that refute his claim, let's hear what Billy has to say for himself.
It's a known forgery. I mean, no one's referring to the Gospel of Barnabas as anything other than.
If you say it's a known forgery, yes, but I'm going to go with that. Let's talk about the Old Testament a little bit.
Wait, so his response was, if you say it's a forgery, I'm going to go with that? Now, if Billy really is one of the foremost world leader in the knowledge on ancient texts and tablets, scriptures, papyruses, and cylinders, then we would expect to at least hear some response to what Wes said, since Billy's claims about Christianity quite literally depend on those facts being wrong. But sadly, it seems that Billy didn't have a response to the facts that Wes pointed out. He instead tried to move to the Old Testament, but Wes wasn't going to let him off the hook that easily. He wanted to make sure that they first discussed Billy's final piece of evidence that he gave in support of his claim, and that evidence was Jesus had a wife.
If you say it's a known forgery, yes, but I'm going to go with that. Let's talk about the Old Testament a little bit and leading up into the New Testament.
Well, hold on, because...
And like I said before, yeah, I mean, if you get your butt spanked in the debate, you want to move on. Like I said, Billy is my guy. I do like him. I don't think he's all the way wrong in a lot of his teachings, texts, and understanding. But you're not going to change somebody's mind if this is your lifelong work. You've been debating the same thing. It ain't going to happen.
Do you mind if I address the Gospel of Jesus' wife?
Sure, go ahead.
What was her name?
Yeah,
I'm like trying to write notes like I know what I'm doing, but I'm just curious.
So the Gospel of Jesus' wife doesn't actually mention. So oftentimes what happens is that the text of the Gospel of Jesus' wife is kind of paralleled with the Gospel of Philip, which mentions that that Jesus would kiss Mary Magdalene on the mouth. The reason we know it's also not legitimate is because we can tie it directly to not copying from an ancient text, but actually copying from an online version of the Gospel of Thomas in a PDF form. And the mistake on that PDF form was copied into the text that was borrowed in the phraseology of Jesus' wife.
All right, so what Wes is saying here isn't some sort of claim that's hard to verify. You literally can't Google Jesus' wife without seeing tons of articles explaining exactly how all of this went down. This alleged inscription about Jesus' wife wasn't copied from an ancient text, but instead from a modern PDF of the Gospel of Thomas that had an error in it, and the forger accidentally copied the same error. So it's true that Harvard was initially fooled into believing that it was legit, only later to clarify that it was a forgery due to the reasons that Wes brought up. So unless Billy literally doesn't do any research, there's no doubt in my mind that Billy's aware of these facts. So the real question is, how is he going to refute these facts and respond to the claims?
I don't know anybody.
And like I said before, I done heard these stories before, and I didn't even know anything about this known forgery that Jesus had a wife. I mean, like I say, so much scrolls, and the Bible always said this scroll is found at this book. They done took so much out of it. But I think that even if he had a wife, it didn't take away from what his mission was and who he is. If that's true, we'll never know. Like I say, Wes is good, Billy is good. We'll never know all the facts, because most of the biblical teachings and stuff without that they didn't save was destroyed, just for us to live today unknowingly and guessing and, doing all this stuff like we're doing right now, trying to find out the truth. Because if we had all the truth in front of us, the world wouldn't look like it do today. But that's just my thoughts. Share your thoughts and let me know what you think. I'm going to try to let it play on. Hopefully I don't get no copyright strike or anything like that while letting this play. But I don't want to ramble on too much. So we're going to watch the finish of it, and I have my closing remarks. Like I said, like always, full link will be in the description section below.
In the field of papyrology, paleography, historiography, who actually refers to these documents as being legitimate.
That's fair enough. I can respect that. So let's go into the Old Testament a little bit.
So once again, Billy has no rebuttal and is trying to pivot to the Old Testament, despite him going on every major podcast telling people that this is evidence that Jesus had a wife. And just so we're all on the same page here, at this point, Billy has given 3 arguments to undermine the credibility of the Bible and the faith of Christians. His first argument was that the Sinai Bible doesn't mention that Jesus was crucified and that it came before the King James Version. But in reality, not only is there no such thing as the Sinai Bible, the codex that he's referring to does mention the crucifixion and is virtually exact with the Bible that we have today. The second piece of evidence that he gave was for the Book of Barnabas, which was written in Spanish and dated well over 1,000 years later than the biblical manuscripts that we have currently. And lastly, he appeals to the gospel of Jesus' wife, which was actually just a small fragment that was a proven forgery. And to make matters worse, Billy didn't have a sufficient rebuttal to any of these claims. So at this point in the debate, Wes has successfully refuted every claim that Billy made with facts that anyone watching this video can easily go verify. So now we're all starting to see why Billy worked so hard to keep this video off of the internet. But after having all of his claims on the New Testament utterly demolished, Billy once again tries to pivot the conversation to a place where he seems to feel more confident in his research, the Old Testament.
That's fair enough. I can respect that. So let's go into the Old Testament a little bit. Predominantly, from my research, I discovered that a lot of information from the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation is a lot of in Genesis, a lot of the creation story that comes into Genesis. Not all of it, but because obviously Genesis is a much smaller version of a much bigger story. But it's literally almost word for word from the Enuma Elish.
So Billy's basic argument here is that the Old Testament, particularly Genesis, was copied from other ancient texts, and he says that the Genesis creation account it's
literally almost word for word from the Enuma Elish.
Which is an insane claim to anyone who's read both, which is why Wes decides to ask Billy if he's read it before making a really smart move.
Have you read the Enuma Elish?
Yeah, I've done lectures.
Sure. Do you mind summarizing the content of the creation account in the Enuma Elish for us?
Now, this was actually a really smart move from Wes, because if you've ever read the creation account in Genesis 1 and 2, I want you to tell me just how much Billy's summary sounds like the creation account in Genesis.
Sure. The Enuma Elish is a very ancient text discovered in the Library of Ashurbanipal. And the summary of it is that it really gives us an account, which is crazy, an astronomical account of the creation of our solar system. It talks about planets and moons gaining specific orbits around the sun. It talks about a huge planet named Tiamat, 46 times larger than Earth. Earth didn't exist at the time that this, according to the author of this text, which is pretty interesting. And then there's talks about a nemesis of sorts. In the original version, it's called Nibiru, but in a more recent version, still thousands of years old, the name was changed to Marduk. Marduk is in the Jewish American Library, in the biblical text, in the Torah, and so forth. Very popular figure in ancient times in the religious books and texts. Marduk wanted to be the destroyer, so Marduk is the one that during its next orbit towards Tiamat, crashed into Tiamat and destroyed Tiamat. A huge chunk of it swung away, recoalesced, taking the water, land, and organic material, which basically recoalesced as our planet here, Earth. And the rest of it broke up into pieces. Some of it turned into the asteroid belt. Other parts of it were thrown towards the sun, and some were thrown towards the inner Oort cloud, towards the outer edge of the solar system. This planet, or this moonlet that orbited supposedly a brown dwarf, based on the description of it, gained a very strange orbit around our sun. And we have the scientific evidence now also to match with NASA's data, where we see that Saturn and I believe Neptune switch places. Uranus is flipped on its side. And that's more evidence that something came through our solar system in ancient times and gravitationally really tugged at planets here and switched up their orbits and even pulled the axis of a planet on its own side, where the equator is now running north and south. So a little bit of modern astrophysics kind of backs up what this ancient text is saying. But the Enuma Elish also then begins to talk about the fact that these beings, it kind of cuts into the fact that these beings, are on Earth and at some point begin to engage mankind. In other words, they didn't create people from scratch, but they engaged the existing hominid and began to utilize us as workers for their workforce.
Yep. exactly like Genesis.
It's literally almost word for word from the Enuma Elish.
So now let's hear how Wes responds.
I think that there are components of what you said that I would say are in there. I'm not sure it's the best summary. Nonetheless, okay, going with what you said that there were like verbatim parallels with the biblical creation story. Even just going off of what you said, which I think there are components of that I would agree with, the battle of the gods, the concept of Enki and the younger gods, and they fight Tiamat, and then Marduk, who swears he'll defeat Tiamat, and Kunku, who kills Tiamat by shooting her with an arrow, and there's this big battle, and then the gods that die end up being the earth and the sky and even us, because we are the end result of that battle. I'm just curious.
Man, I just want to stop right there. You hear Wes, a biblical scholar, you name it, both of these two guys are agreeing on the ancient, pretty much battle, and we're the results of it. Besides the biblical stuff and everything else, I just want y'all to pay attention to that. That's why I said these guys actually sat down and got together the information that they can find out. But we're just touching on things that's not meant for us to know. Will they ever find out? I don't think so. Not in this lifetime before God comes back. But just the information, you hear these names before. You hear it on Marvel if you're a big fan of that. Tiamat, I think they are Titans, or what's the name of that garbage movie that came out? They were supposed to be stronger than the Avengers, and they get killed by other little creatures. That might even be the Titans, but not. I don't know the name of that movie. It's so unforgettable that I hate that they even made it. I wouldn't even call it a Marvel movie, but going ahead with that, you hear Tiamat, the names that they said in there, you done heard this over and over. When you watch anything about Supernatural, any of these other movies, you heard these biblical names or these creation stories in your lifetime before. But share your thoughts and let me know what you think. Let's go ahead and continue so we can wrap it up.
You say that there are not just parallels, but there's actual copying. Looking at Genesis chapter 1 and 2, where the creation story is summarized in the Bible, what are the actual kind of parallels there that you're looking to? Because as someone who's read both, I not only do I not find parallels, I actually, and this is the majority of ancient Near Eastern scholarship with me, think that Genesis chapter 1 is actually an apologetic against documents like the Enuma Elish. So what are the parallels there?
So Billy is now in the hot seat once again. Now that he's being pressed to give evidence again, how do you think that he'll respond?
So what are the parallels there?
Separated the waters from the waters, for example. That's in the Enuma Elish, and that's also in the biblical text.
Wes' facial features, man, is crazy. When I was watching this and just trying to do comparison, like I said before, I am a big fan of Billy and his wife, and this information they find in the teachings that they go into. This was hilarious for me.
And as polite as Wes is, he simply couldn't hold back his amusement at this point.
Okay, that I would agree is a parallel. The only reason I highlight that is that if you're making this the argument, because if you brought it up, and I mean this with all due respect, there are superficial parallels. I would agree. The separation of the water, the concept of the earth being formless and void. That's also in the Enuma Elish. However, I think all the other details, it's the details that make the difference. And if we're looking at not the superficial crossovers, but the actual themes and concepts of what it's saying, you don't have a creation within 7 days.
The Bible's not going to take the Enuma Elish and put it into the biblical text. There are certain words that they utilize that let me know that they copied it from that text. Like, for example, it's separating the water from the waters, the void, the earth being void. That information is literally just copied over. So it tells you that somebody saw that and said, let me add it to this book right here, or let me add it to the scripture or this papyrus, because it wasn't a book yet.
So initially, Billy said that Genesis was copied word for word, and then he provided part of one sentence in support of his claim, with Wes providing another. Then when asked for clarity, Billy repeats Wes's second sentence back to Wes in support of his claim. And then Billy seems to change his argument to say that there were some sentences that were copied, even though he can only provide part of one, and Wes gave him the other one. So let's go ahead and hear his response to this, and then we'll wrap up.
Let me just say this. So the reason why I say it's actually an apologetic against that is because the purpose of the Enuma Elish, which the Babylonians read every Babylonian New Year, was to point out the fact that the deities, and there's countless deities in the Babylonian pantheon, they actually come from the created order. So they're not outside of time and space. They actually come from the created order. And when they die in this battle, right, when Tiamat is defeated, the defeated gods become the earth and the sky and the plants and even you and me. And in that sense, the theme is that you don't actually have any purpose or end result, and you're not created in the image of God. In fact, in the ancient Babylonian system, only the kings were created in the image of God. I would say what we see within the biblical account is that God purposefully creates. There's only one God. He purposefully creates, and then he creates, and it's good. And it continues to say it's good 7 times. And then at the end of chapter 1, just for, the thick people in the original audience, it says, and then it was very good. And then he creates humanity, not kings, but simply the humans that he creates in God's image. And they have purpose and meaning, and that instills them with this creation order. And that's not what we find in the Enuma Elish. In fact, we find the opposite in the Enuma Elish, is that the created order is not good. It's a mistake. And that you are not created in the image of God. And there's a reminder that regular people are not created in the image of God. I would say, just with all due respect, the parallels linguistically are not there. There might be superficial kind of concepts that are there, but they're so superficial that we can find them in everything. In the sense of, I'm in an office studio, you're in your office studio. That doesn't mean that, that we're the same people or we're even in the same place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I don't agree with that. I just see, if I have all these texts out, there's a lot of different information that you can see. There's a lot of it's been copied word for word into the biblical text.
But what's the word for word?
In your version of what you believe in, you keep saying that God's a he.
Yep.
And so where do you get that from?
And once again, Billy failed to provide a response to Wes's fact-based claim and didn't provide a counterclaim before deciding to change the subject. So we're barely even 30 minutes into the debate at this point, and so far, Wes has completely dismantled every single piece of evidence that Billy has brought forth, and the rest of the debate continues to go on just like this. And by the way, there were countless copyright claims being filed to protect Billy to have the videos taken down, but it seems now that there's so many clips surfacing that the videos are now being left alone. So we'll see if this video even stays up, but I think it's now clear why Billy wanted to keep this debate off the internet so badly. He wasn't capable of providing any evidence for any of his claims that he's been teaching for years that are causing people to doubt the validity of the Bible. And if people want to question the veracity of the Bible, then they should do so based on facts. But as we've seen in this debate, the facts overwhelmingly support its reliability. So all in all, this debate serves as a reminder that Christianity is built on a firm foundation, not myths or misinformation. And most importantly, this points us back to the heart of the gospel. Christ really did live, die, and rise again, which is a historical event that changed the world forever. And his resurrection isn't just a claim, it's the cornerstone of our faith and the hope that we have today. Now, if you want to dive deeper into how the resurrection changed the entire landscape of the region at that time, go ahead and check out this video and check out Wes.
And like I say, man, y'all make sure y'all go ahead and check out Wes Huff's channel. Like I said, the full unedited video was amazing. Wes is on point, but like I said before, many people you can torque information to fit your own narrative. I just don't think the Bible it can be contradicted overall with the prophecies that done came into place, done passed. There's so many that done been fulfilled over the years, I think over 1,000 stuff like that. This researcher, let me know in the comments below how many prophecies out of the Bible has actually been fulfilled. These guys, like I said before, I like Billy, I like Wes. Even Wes himself, like I said, is a biblical scholar. His belief on Christmas and stuff like that, saying it's not pagan, I don't think so. Like I said before, we can find information. So much information has been lost. I think he goes, I'm gonna have to do a video reaction on that Christmas video because I just don't believe in what he's saying. There's too much stuff that's more demonic to me when it comes to Christmas. We know Jesus wasn't born in nowhere in the winter time, but I get what he's saying because he celebrates it. So we can come up with our own narrative, but that doesn't mean that the information that he has isn't relevant or it could be true. It's like a 50-50 in a lot of things, but I think right on here, Billy is all the way wrong in most of his stances against Wes in this debate video right here. But share your thoughts. Let me know what you think about the video. Are you a fan of Billy? Are you a fan of Wes? Did you know anything about Wes before this first and probably last debate with Billy Carson? But hey, if you're new to the channel, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow. For everybody else, we'll be back again. Welcome to 2025. Let's go.